Hello everyone, and welcome to yet another day of our Halloween spooktacular. Today, Egypt, ancient, filled with sand, pyramids, spooky old curses, and adorable little dogs.
And mummies.
Yes, and mummies. Everybody knows about the mummies.
Desiccated, skeletal mummies. You know, the sands of time wipe away the flesh and leave only beautiful, scaly bones. Alligators can do it too. Or, more accurately, crocodiles. No, really, which one is right? I'm dying.
I'm pretty sure it's crocodiles.
Yes, crocodiles. Hippopotami. Yes. Truly a land of ancient wonders. Ah, yes. With that many spooky tombs laying around, it's no wonder the civilization rose to prominence so early. Really.
Well, Egypt as a civilization lasted 3,000 years or so. They were quite long-lived.
Still in Egypt there. Still there.
Well, ancient Egypt. Modern Egypt, nobody cares about.
OG, heavily defined gatekeeper Egypt only lasted a few thousand years. I understand how it is. Start getting to those pituitarians, then it's not Egypt enough anymore. That's because a minority of the ruling class was Greek instead of Egyptian. Ooh, look at me. I decide what's Egypt and what's not. Ooh. You know, I hope we truly are cursed. I hope we've been cursed all, 3 of the different times we've thought we might have been cursed this season. And I hope that a spooky mummy ambushes you when you least expect it. Well, what do you say to that?
You're very rude, and I don't appreciate that. If I were ambushed by a spooky mummy, who would co-host all of these episodes? Yorick doesn't say much, and neither does Serratus. No offense, Serratus.
I think the co-host might be...
I hope the spooky mummy gets you instead.
And I hope that...
Disgusting. Utterly disgusting.
Utterly bad. Siblings. To be connected from birth. An unbreakable bond for some. A force to be feared for others. Raya and Sakima were a pair of siblings living in the city of Alexandria in the year 1919. The society was religiously conservative, and the British Empire had its colonial vice tight around the nation of Egypt. The sisters occupied a place relatively low on the societal ladder of Alexandrian society, running a public house of sorts in the El Laban district of the city, with the help of their husbands and a pair of stalwart bodyguards, of course. Now, these public houses, or secret houses, as I've seen them called, are a sort of a public home where you can go to drink socially, or smoke, or even participate in prostitution, if not legally, at least away from prying eyes, preserving your societal image and your status as a person not imprisoned for public intoxication. Their establishment would have been the sort frequented by the privileged, distinguished foreigners, distinguished locals, and the wealthy. Now, I mentioned the socially conservative nature of the day's society. You see, in Egypt at the time, it was not legal for women to deposit money in a bank. As a result, independent women, whether they be simply independently wealthy, inheritors of familial wealth, or women of the night, let us say, they would wear their wealth rather than stash it in a bank, because they couldn't. Many such women, be they women of privilege or perhaps more likely women of the night, found themselves frequenting the sisters' public house. Now, unfortunately for these women, the pair would not go on to become known as the sisters with exceptional empathy. Raya and Sakima and their respective families would turn. Raya and Sakima and their respective families would face increasingly difficult financial times as the years progressed. This would turn them to despicable acts of theft and murder, the kind that would thrill and horrify the society of their day. Now, it's important to know, despite the front-facing nature of the sisters, this was really a set of gang crimes. The sisters, their husbands, and their bodyguards all participated in these murders. They all had a function in luring in victims and disposing of the bodies. They even had a jeweler who is in on the take, acquiring the goods that they stole from the recently murdered. He, of course, was ultimately sentenced to years in prison for his crimes, while the sisters and their accomplices faced a much harsher penalty. Anyway, before we get too deep, let's get the skinny on how their crimes usually went down. Also, I would like to apologize. There's been buzzing going on, likely in the background. My PC has decided to sound like a race car while it's rendering videos, and I simply do not have the courage to stop the process and start it again. Thank you. So, the process went a little like this. First, they would find a woman in the market with a excessive burden of jewelry, and usually this was a woman they either knew of or knew personally. They would then, one of the sisters rather, would approach the woman and chat her up, informing her that she had some goods for sale back at her public house. If successful, she would lure this woman back to the house, where they would liquor her up and then murder her, usually with the help of their husbands, who would then hide the body either near to the building or beneath the building in some cases. Step 5, profit. The murders we know of occurred between 1919 and 1920 and numbered at about 17 women. Now, as I said before, we do not know the full true extent of these crimes. We only know of the 17. There may have been more that we simply know nothing about. The case quickly rose in prominence and infamy due to the global importance of Alexandria as a city during the time. You see, it was a major tourist hub before the war, and as a result, word got around. What preserved the infamy of this case, and in fact made the sisters themselves the centerpiece of it in much of the discussion about the case, was the fact that they were the first women to ever be executed by the modern Egyptian state, making them a sort of a historic milestone for the extremely conservative society for death. Now, notably, the women murdered by the sisters were often conspicuously noticed in their company on the nights of their murders. And this did not go without notice. The police did, on 1 or 2 occasions, check in to these disappearances, though many went unchecked due to the possibility of these women simply fleeing their families or leaving the city for greener pastures, etc., etc. Such is the case with missing people oftentimes. Perhaps a more likely giveaway for the sisters would have been the corpse smell that tended to linger around their establishments. However, while they were renting out and using an establishment, they would hide this decomposition stench with excessive burning of incense, which is very conspicuous, however, not really enough to get the police to knock them over and tear the place apart looking for bodies, apparently. The gang would ultimately be done in when Raya's young daughter, Badia, turned them in to the police. This act doomed the sisters, their husbands, and their bodyguards to the hangman's noose. However, most unfortunately, it seems to have doomed the poor girl to death as well, seeing as she died in a arson. It seems that vigilantes seeking justice for lost loved ones set the blaze as a sort of revenge. A twisted and sad irony, if ever there was one. Dear young ones, these women and their husbands and their bodyguards had no mercy. But nothing is more merciless than the conditions that created these fiends. You see, the First World War had a dire impact on the industry and economy of Alexandria and to Egypt as a whole. This led to a massive rise in poverty, leading the sisters to first establish public houses and then later commit acts of theft and murder. Know poverty's face, young one. Know what it does. Know the desperation it causes. And know what you would be willing to do to get by. Stay spooky.
Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the Eye of Horus. I chose this specifically for Egypt because it is still a commonly used symbol in modern witchcraft. And it's still a modernly used symbol because of its qualities as a symbol of protection and good health. And it's also got kind of a really interesting history to it. I personally use it in some of my practice, and I thought it would be a good subject for this. If you disagree, well, you disagree, and you're gonna have to just listen to this anyways, so how's about them apples? The Eye of Horus represents an aspect of the god Horus. He is a sky god that is most commonly depicted as a falcon of some sort. I don't know what kind of falcon. There's tons of different kinds of falcon, okay? Okay. I don't know which particular bird he is. So Horus has two eyes, like most people. Not everybody has two eyes. I hope you have two. So Horus's right eye is representative of the sun and the sun god Ra, and his left eye is representing the moon and the god Thoth. He has two different eyes because in one of the older myths, Set, the god of chaos and destruction, and Horus battle for the right to the throne after Osiris's death. And Set gouges out his nephew's eye. Just, you know, in front of all the other gods, and he gets away with it. You know. And the eye is restored by Thoth and the goddess. It's restored by Thoth and the goddess Hathor. The Eye of Horus, the eyes of Horus, are an incredibly important protection symbol. They're painted onto the walls of tombs. Amulets in their likeness are made for those who have passed on to protect their souls in the afterlife. And they were also painted on the bow of a boat to ensure safe travel along the Nile and at sea. Which is kind of cool. They painted little eyes on their boats. I wish we still did that. You know how cool that would be. Maybe I just think it's cool. It's still an incredibly well-known symbol and still used for its powers of protection even to this day. I'm sure all of you have probably seen it depicted in one way or another, whether in history books or jewelry or fashion and so on and so forth. I use it personally as a symbol of protection, as it was really intended. It's one of those things that witches have picked up through the years and put into their practices, and that society has just picked up and kept around. The Eye of Horus is still used to this day by many modern witches as a symbol of protection. It's one of those things that we've picked up and still use in our practices and our conglomeration of ideals and symbols and ideologies. And it's still an important one. I think it's incredibly important to take aspects of these different cultures and incorporate them and keep their memory alive as best we can. Cultures will fade if you don't remember them. I know Egypt's not in danger of that at all, given the amount of study and movies and books and paintings it still influences. But it really is important to keep these symbols going, keep using these symbols for what they were intended. So yeah, this section's probably a little bit different than most of the other sections that I've done for this series, but I think it is incredibly interesting to learn about symbols that people still use modernly and where they've come from, what they were used for, how they were used when they first came to prominence. And it's really important just to remember these things so they don't fall out of our consciousness as an important part of history, an important symbol. I know this bit is a little bit different than some of the other ones I've done for this series, but I do find this symbol, the Eye of Horus, to be a really interesting symbol, a really important one in history, and I enjoy taking aspects of other cultures into my practice to help keep them alive and help me make my practice feel a little more personal. And I know it's not like that for everyone, but I think that a lot of modern witches also feel a similar way. I hope, if at the very least, that you become a little bit interested in Egyptian symbols and their mythology and their gods. It is an incredibly interesting pantheon, an incredibly interesting section of history that I just adore and probably could spend all night talking about, but I won't, because that would make this a very long video.
It's a bestiary, everybody come see some bees.
The devourer of the dead, eater of hearts. Amit, the devourer, is a demon who eats hearts. She is the embodiment of all the Egyptians feared in life. The unending restlessness of their souls. And hippos, which are omnivores? Another reason for me to avoid water at all costs. No, thank you. No. Amit has the face of a crocodile with the mane and front paws of a lion, and then her back half is that of a hippo. The Egyptians just took the three most terrifying animals of the Nile and like shoved them together. It's like the chimera all over again. Three terrifying beasts all in one, because that's what you want to see in the afterlife. That's when you go to the scales of justice to have your heart weighed by Anubis. That's what you want to see, is this little crocodile, lion, hippo creature just staring at you with her beady eyes, wanting to eat your heart, so then your soul wanders forever and never finds peace. The most truly terrifying beast in our collection. You go to the scales of justice to have your heart weighed by Anubis against the feather of truth. And in the corner, you see Anubis's poodle-sized conglomeration of terrifying animals amidst the devourer staring at you with her beady little eyes, just waiting, because she knows you smell like fear and wickedness. And Anubis is like, oh yes, your heart, it is heavy and burdened with sin. And then he takes your heart and just gives it to his little terrifying crocodile, lion, hippo dog. Truly just terrifying. That is how your soul comes to just wander the afterlife and never know true peace. Anubis feeding your heart to his lapdog. Yeah. No thank you. Amit the devourer, everything you should fear in life. Devourer of hearts. Hippo. Lapdog. I mean, I'm sure Anubis finds her cute. Like, Mitty, you want another little heart?
Ah, yes, it brings a tear to my eye. Truly. Such a spooky pet. Such a good boy. Girl. Ambiguous, I do suppose.
I think female, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Anyway, I, which would like to apologize for being so rude and insensitive. I really, really hope that, well, you aren't ambushed by a spooky skeleton mummy, especially not an accursed one with deep ties to my forgotten past. Yes, and furthermore, I truly hope it does not steal your likeness and use the disguise to be close to me, waiting for the opportune moment to strike and murder me, sucking out the marrow from my bones and grinding the remnants into a sad, powdery dust.
That was very oddly specific, but thank you for your apology.
You're welcome. Ha! Whew. Ah. Yes. Yes, hello? Someone's at the door.
Fine.
I know because they called me on the phone and said they're at the door. No ambushes, assured, 100%. You should take the camera with you though, apparently.
Do you just take...
Go alone.
Fine.
Unarmed.
Fine. Unarmed? Do you just want me to chop off my arms then?
No, without weapons.
I'm a witch. I always have a weapon on hand.
They're asking that you not be pretentious as well, if that's possible.
Fine, fine. I'm going to go get the door.
Oh, he says he has delicious food. You should totally answer very soon. Yes,
God.
It's getting cold.
I don't care about the
Outside.
food.
Apparently they're experiencing discomfort.
I can't get it off the thing, okay.
Yes. Okay, he's hanging up now.
Good lord, it's like midnight. Jesus Christ!
It's clicked.
Associated. What was that look?
I guess that look meant you have to start again.
What was the look?
I'm sorry you act as though you didn't just say something funny. Go.
I didn't realize you were done. It was funny.
I was amused. I smirked and looked at my lovely wife. I'm sorry. Next time I'll just avert my eyes and go, you know I disdain you. Alright, you may continue, peasant.
God, I hate you. Thoth and the goddess, Jesus. Which one is it?
Goddess Jesus?
Not the goddess Jesus. Hathor. Hathor. I had to think of her name. Hathor. I mean, I saw a woman, no joke. I took a curbside out, right? I work retail. I took a curbside out, and she had a poodle in the back. Stick its head out. It had a freaking neon purple ponytail. And then the mom, you know, the human mom, got out of the car to like help me lift the product into the car. And the mom had a neon purple ponytail. They matched.
I mean, on one hand, don't you wish you could love somebody that much?
Not enough to wear matching neon purple ponytails, especially like.
I mean, me and you have matching beards. I've got a place.
I missed. Fetch my hat slave. Get out of there. Rude. Anyways, where was I going with this? I need to wrap this up.